757 had hit the Pentagon. But as we went through all these photographs, we could find no pictures whatsoever showing a tail, a nose, a fuselage, wings, engine, wheels, luggage, seats, nothing. There were no photographs showing any recognizable wreckage from a 757. No tail, no fuselage, no wings, no wheels, no engines, no seats, no luggage, nothing on the outside of the Pentagon.
Exterior photographs are misleading because they show only the intact roof structure of the outer rings and don't reveal the plane penetrated all the way to the ground floor of the third ring. One engine of the aircraft punched a 12-foot hole through the wall of the second ring.
From wingtip to wingtip, a 757 is 124 feet 10 inches. From nose to tail, a 757 is 155 feet and 3 inches in length, and the height is 44 feet and 6 inches.
Airplanes do not make clean outline holes in buildings they collide with, any more than cars make clean outline holes in walls they collide with. The Pentagon, built mostly of wood and concrete, and in that one section having been recently reinforced, is a heavy and solid object. Jet aircraft are thin and lightweight. There are sub-assemblies which are heavy and solid, such as the engines, the frames supporting the landing gear, cockpit avionics, the portable water tanks, APU, etc. On impact, these would break loose from the aircraft and continue forward, producing smaller holes.
Is this the only security camera that was on at the Pentagon? The Pentagon. This is the nerve center for the United States military, supposedly the most secure building in the country. And this is the only video footage that was available?
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
About an hour ago, World Trade Center building number 7 collapsed. A 42-story building, weakened by the devastation that had occurred earlier today.
What is that brief flash that occurs just as the plane makes impact? Now, there are some that would say that this is a trick of light, a reflection. Well, let's keep in mind that if you hold a mirror in your hand and reflect the sun's rays, that reflection only goes where you aim that reflection. So a reflection should only be seen from one particular angle. Just as the plane makes impact, there is a flash. Note the shadow rising from the lower right of the Trade Center tower, and keep in mind that the shadow won't reach the impact point before the plane and vice versa. This is very important because the flash occurs before the shadow and the plane meet.
On the in-plain sight version of this footage, I believe the flash appears to come before impact due to too much image processing. The softening of the image makes the flash boundary compete with the shadow boundary, pushing the shadow boundary back until the flash disappears. When looking at the raw footage, I don't think you can prove or disprove the flash comes before impact.
I was heading in northbound on 27, and the traffic this morning, it was, typical rush hour, had ground to a standstill, and I looked off, looked out my window, I saw this plane, a jet, American Airlines jet coming, and I thought, this doesn't add up, it's really low, and I saw it, it just went, it was like a cruise missile with wings, went right there and slammed right into the Pentagon. Huge explosion, great ball of fire, and smoke started billowing out, and then it was just chaos on the highway as people either tried to move around the traffic and go down either forward or backwards. We had a lady who was in front of me who was backing up and screaming, "Everybody go back, they've hit the Pentagon." And, it's just sheer terror.
I realize this is not a rebuttal of every point raised in the Pentagon animation and in plain sight video. They raise a lot of points which I think are worthy of discussion. Do I think a missile hit the Pentagon? Not really, and that has nothing to do with the photos I've shown of airplane wreckage. It just seems logistically very difficult for the Bush administration to try to pull something like that off, even if they wanted to. They don't seem quite competent enough for that. Now, how could anyone conceive of the idea that the Bush administration would want to launch missiles at its own buildings, or in some way be responsible for the destruction that happened on 9/11. The Project for the New American Century, or PNAC, was founded in 1997. Among its supporters were 3 Republican former officials who were sitting out the Democratic presidency of Bill Clinton: Donald Rumsfeld, Dick Cheney, and Paul Wolfowitz. In open letters to Clinton and GOP congressional leaders the next year, the group called for the removal of Saddam Hussein's regime from power, and a shift towards a more assertive U.S. policy in the Middle East, including the use of force if necessary to unseat Saddam. And in a report just before the 2000 election that would bring Bush to power, the group predicted that the shift would come about slowly, unless there were some catastrophic and catalyzing event, like a new Pearl Harbor. That event came on September 11th. By that time, Cheney was vice president, Rumsfeld was secretary of defense, and Wolfowitz his deputy at the Pentagon. The next morning, before it was even clear who was behind the attacks, Rumsfeld insisted at a cabinet meeting that Saddam's Iraq should be a principal target of the first round of terrorism. While this doesn't prove the validity of any conspiracy theories, it does suggest that the Bush administration should not be taken at face value on the subject of Iraq. If you've got a weekend to spare, I recommend browsing through all the 911 conspiracy theory sites. If you're into military hardware, you can peer at the supposed bump on the bottom of the 747, or if you're an engineer, you can read the Federal Emergency Management Agency World Trade Center Building Performance Study and look for flaws. And there's even seismic records for seismologists. Truly, there is something for everybody. And to wrap this up, here's one of the more interesting points made on a conspiracy theory website. This is footage of the North Tower. Note that the camera shakes 13 seconds before the collapse. This is not footage I got from the conspiracy theory website. I got this elsewhere. Here's Howard Dean commenting on conspiracy theories in December 2001. Note that the right-wing press misrepresented his remarks and vilified him for them.
Once we get you in the White House, would you please make sure that there is a thorough investigation of 9/11 and not
Yes.
stonewall
There is a
it?
report which the president is suppressing evidence for, which is a thorough investigation of 9/11.
Why do you think he's suppressing that report?
I don't know. There are many theories about it. The most interesting theory that I've heard so far, which is nothing more than a theory, I can't think it can't be proved, is that he was warned ahead of time by the Saudis. Now, who knows what the real situation is, but the trouble is, by suppressing that kind of information, you lead to those kinds of theories, whether they have any truth to them or not, and eventually they get repeated as fact. So I think the president's taking a great risk by suppressing the key information that needs to go to the Kane Commission.